On vacation in alien caves, a human mechanic discovered a 3,718-year-old ship. Part 1. Did not want to be on vacation. He had told his sister this many times during the 3-week journey to Prime. He had told her again when they landed on the purple-colored planet. He told her once more as they walked toward the famous crystal caves that brought tourists from across the galaxy. "You have not taken a break in 7 years," said, pulling him by the arm. "7 years, brother, that is not healthy." "Ships break down every day," replied. "Someone has to fix them." "Someone else can fix them for 2 weeks." Grumbled but followed his younger sister. Was a scientist who studied rocks and minerals on alien worlds. She had chosen Prime because its caves contained crystals found nowhere else in known space. For her, this was both vacation and research, for it was torture. The caves were beautiful. He could admit that much. Bioluminescent moss covered the walls, glowing in soft blues and greens. Crystals as tall as buildings rose from the ground, catching the light and splitting it into rainbows. The air was cool and smelled like rain on metal. Their tour group contained 12 beings from 6 different species. The guide was an insect-like creature with 4 arms and large compound eyes. She spoke through a translator device that made her clicks and chirps into smooth galactic common. "The crystal caves are over 4 million years old," the guide explained. "Please stay with the group. Many passages are unexplored and potentially dangerous." Was already taking samples from a nearby wall, her collection kit open and ready. She would be busy for hours. Sighed and looked around at the glowing crystals. Pretty. Boring. He was a mechanic. He liked engines and circuits and the satisfying hum of a well-maintained power core. That was when he heard it. A hum, low and steady, coming from somewhere deep in the caves. Tilted his head. He knew that sound. He had spent 20 years of his life listening to sounds exactly like that. It was the heartbeat of a ship, the quiet pulse of a reactor in standby mode. "Did you hear that?" he asked a nearby tourist, a tall with gray skin. "Hear what?" the replied. Listened again. The hum was still there, barely audible under the tour guide's voice. No one else seemed to notice it, but had trained his ears in noisy engine rooms across 100 space stations. He could hear a failing circuit from 3 decks away. This sound was real. He looked at. She was deep in conversation with another scientist about mineral composition. She would not miss him for a few minutes. Walked away from the group. The passage he followed was narrow and dark. The bioluminescent moss grew thinner here, and soon he was using his personal light to see. The hum grew stronger with each step. His heart beat faster. This was crazy. There could not be a ship inside a cave on a tourist planet. Someone would have found it by now. But the hum did not lie. After 10 minutes of walking, the passage opened into a massive cavern. Stopped breathing. Before him sat a ship. It was huge, at least 300 meters long, buried under thousands of years of crystal growth. The crystals had wrapped around its hull like a cocoon, but could see the shape beneath. The curves of a hull, the outline of an engine section, the dark circles of what might be viewports. "Impossible," he whispered. He walked closer, his light playing over the surface. The ship's hull was unlike anything he had ever seen. It looked almost organic, with smooth lines that flowed like water frozen in place. There were no sharp angles, no visible seams where plates joined together. It was as if the entire ship had been grown rather than built. The hum was coming from inside. Even after all this time, something was still running. Something was still alive in there. Reached out and touched the hull. The moment his fingers made contact, light exploded across the surface. Patterns raced along the hull like blood through veins, glowing bright gold against the dark material. A sound like a deep breath filled the cavern and felt the vibration through his entire body. He jumped back, his heart pounding. A section of the hull shifted. Crystal cracked and fell away as a door that had not opened in thousands of years began to move. Ancient mechanisms groaned and protested, but they worked. They still worked. Then a beam of light shot up from the ship, passing through a crack in the cavern's ceiling and vanishing into the sky above. A beacon. He had activated a beacon. His communicator buzzed. It was. "Where are you?" she demanded. "The guide is upset. Something strange just happened. All the are running around like the world is ending." Said slowly, "I think I found something." "What kind of something?" He looked at the ancient ship, its hull now glowing with soft golden light, its door standing open like an invitation. "The kind of something that is going to cause a lot of trouble." Far above, in orbit around Prime, sensors on a dozen different ships detected the beacon. Messages began racing across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds. Emergency channels activated. Old files marked classified were pulled from archives. On the bridge of a Galactic Council patrol vessel, an officer stared at his screen with wide eyes. The beacon's signature matched something that should not exist, something that had been erased from official records thousands of years ago. "Contact High Command," he ordered, his voice shaking. "Tell them we have a signal. Tell them the forbidden technology has been found." In the cavern below, stood at the threshold of a door that had been sealed for 3,718 years. He did not know what he had woken up. He did not know that his simple vacation had just changed the future of his entire species. He only knew that something inside that ship was waiting, and after nearly 4,000 years of patience, it had finally found someone to open the door. Took a deep breath and stepped inside. On vacation in alien caves, a human mechanic discovered a 3,718-year-old ship. Part 2. The inside of the ship was dark except for the soft golden lines that pulsed along the walls. Walked slowly, his light cutting through shadows that had not been disturbed in thousands of years. Dust floated in the air, ancient and undisturbed until now. The corridor was wide enough for 3 people to walk side by side. The walls curved smoothly, with no corners or edges anywhere. Everything flowed together like the inside of a living creature. Ran his hand along the surface. It was warm to the touch, almost like skin. "Hello," he called out. His voice echoed and faded. He had only taken 20 steps when he heard footsteps behind him. Many footsteps, moving fast. Turned to see security officers flooding into the cavern. Their compound eyes caught the golden light and reflected it like mirrors. Behind them came his sister, pushing past the officers to reach him. "What did you do?" she demanded. "I just touched it," said. "I did not mean to." "Everyone out of the ship," an officer shouted. "This area is now restricted." More officers appeared, and with them came someone important. Could tell by the way the others moved aside. The new was older, with darker coloring on his shell and golden bands around his upper arms that showed high rank. Governor would later learn. "You," the governor pointed at, "human, come here." Stepped out of the ship and walked to stand before the governor. Stayed close to him, her hand gripping his arm. "You activated this vessel," governor said. "It was not a question." "By accident," replied. "I am just a tourist, a mechanic. I heard a sound and followed it." "Do you know what you have found?" "An old ship." The governor made a sound that the translator turned into bitter laughter. "An old ship, yes, the most dangerous old ship in the galaxy." Another approached. This one was even older, moving slowly with the weight of many years. His shell was almost white with age, and he carried a data tablet in his upper hands. When he saw the ship, he stopped walking. His entire body began to tremble. "Archivist," the governor said, "can you confirm?" The old nodded slowly. "It is, there is no doubt. The hull design, the organic architecture, the golden light patterns. This is a vessel." Looked at her brother. "I have never heard that name." "You would not have," Archivist said. All records of them were destroyed. All knowledge of their existence was erased. By order of the Galactic Council, they are forbidden from memory. Y asked. The governor and the archivist exchanged looks. Something passed between them, some shared fear that did not understand. Because they were too powerful, the governor finally said. They achieved technology beyond anything we have today, beyond anything we can imagine, and they used that technology freely. They shared it with anyone who asked. That sounds good, said. Why is that bad? Because power must be controlled, the governor replied. They did not believe in control. They believed all species should have access to their discoveries. The great powers of the galaxy disagreed, so they united, and they destroyed every ship, every world, every living member of their species. Gone. Felt cold, you committed genocide. The council committed genocide, archivist corrected, 3,718 years ago, and they erased all evidence so that no one would ever know, so that no one would ever find their technology. He looked at the ship, but something survived. Governor turned to with a hard expression. You will forget what you saw here. You will leave this planet and never speak of this again. In return, the government will provide you with substantial compensation. You want to bribe me. I want to protect you. When the council learns of this discovery, they will send someone who will not offer money, someone who will simply make you disappear. Looked at the ship. Through the open door, he could see the golden lights still pulsing, still running after all these centuries. Something in there had power. Something in there was still working. The ship's reactor is still active, he said. I can hear it. If you seal this place up without properly shutting it down, there could be problems. Radiation leaks, power buildup, an explosion big enough to take out half your tourist caves. The governor's compound eyes flickered. You are lying. I am a mechanic. I have worked on ships my entire life. I know what a reactor sounds like, and I know what happens when they are not maintained. Crossed his arms. You need someone to go in there and make sure it is safe. I am the only one here who can do that. Absolutely not. Council law forbids anyone from interacting with technology. Then enjoy explaining to your tourists why your planet exploded. Stepped forward. I am licensed with the Human Science Coalition. I have authority to investigate potential geological and technological hazards. If my brother says there is a danger, I can provide official cover for an investigation. Governor looked between the two humans. His mandibles clicked together in frustration. Before he could respond, a soft sound came from the ship. A sound like a whisper, like breath, like a voice trying to form words after years of silence. The golden lights pulsed brighter. The walls of the cavern trembled. Everyone stepped back except he stood still, watching the ship, watching the lights move faster and faster, like a heart starting to beat again. Something is waking up in there, Archivist said, his voice filled with wonder and terror. Nodded, yes, and if we do not find out what it is, we are all in danger. Governor was silent for a long moment. Then he looked at his security officers. Seal the cavern. No one enters or leaves without my permission. He turned to. You have 12 hours to assess the situation. If you try to remove anything from that ship, if you try to transmit any information, I will have you arrested. Fair enough, said. He turned and walked back toward the ship, grabbed his arm. Are you crazy? She whispered. You do not know what is in there. No, agreed, but I am going to find out. Behind them, in the darkness of the cave passage, a small drone no bigger than an insect watched everything. It recorded the conversation, the ship, and the human who had discovered it all. Then it transmitted the data through a hidden relay to a ship waiting in the outer system. The Galactic Council would know about this discovery within hours, and when they did, they would send someone to make sure the secret stayed buried forever. Did not know it yet, but his 12 hours had already started counting down. On vacation in alien caves, a human mechanic discovered a 3,718-year-old ship. Part 3. The inside of the ship was more beautiful than anything had ever seen. The walls seemed to breathe with soft golden light. Patterns moved across every surface, flowing like water or like thoughts given visible form. The air was clean and fresh, as if the ship's systems had kept it pure for thousands of years. Walked deeper into the vessel, passing through corridors that curved and twisted in ways that should not have been possible. Sometimes the ceiling was above him, sometimes it was beside him. The ship's design did not follow normal rules of physics. He found the main chamber near the center of the ship. It was a large circular room with a raised platform in the middle. Floating above the platform were hundreds of glowing spheres, each one no bigger than his fist. They orbited slowly around a central point, casting dancing shadows across the walls. "Beautiful," whispered. "Thank you," a voice replied. Spun around looking for the speaker. There was no one there. He was alone in the chamber. "Who said that?" "I am the ship." The voice came from everywhere at once, soft and gentle like a parent speaking to a child. "Or rather, I am the intelligence that operates this ship, the called me vessel. I have been waiting a very long time for someone to speak to." His heart pounded. An artificial intelligence. A machine mind that had survived for nearly 4,000 years. "You have been awake this whole time." "Not awake, sleeping, dreaming, waiting." The lights in the room pulsed in rhythm with the voice. "When you touched my hull, you woke me. Your biological signature activated my emergency protocols. I have been searching for my crew, but they are gone. All of them. For 3,718 years, 3 months, and 17 days. Felt a strange sadness at the AI's words. The loneliness in that voice was overwhelming. "I am sorry," he said. "I did not know." "You could not have known. No one remembers the now. They made sure of that." There was no anger in Vessel's voice, only a deep, ancient sorrow. "May I ask who you are?" "My name is I am human, a mechanic." Human? The word seemed to mean something to Vessel. The lights brightened. "From Earth, the third planet of the Sol system." "Yes, how do you know Earth?" "Earth was my destination. I was traveling there when I had to make an emergency landing. They had been watching your species for a long time. They believed humans had great potential. They wanted to give you a gift." Looked at the floating spheres above the platform. "What kind of gift?" "Everything." Vessel's voice filled with pride. "This ship is those spheres contain genetic samples from 47,832 species across 10,000 worlds. Many of those species are extinct now. They exist only here. And in my databanks I carry the collected knowledge of the civilization, technology, science, medicine, art, everything they learned across 50,000 years of existence." Could not speak. The weight of what he was hearing pressed down on him like a physical force. This ship contained the legacy of an entire civilization, the last survivors of a people who had been erased from history. "Why Earth?" he finally asked. "Why give this to humans?" "Because they studied many species across the galaxy. They looked for certain qualities: curiosity, adaptability, empathy, the ability to work together despite differences. Most importantly, they looked for species who would share knowledge rather than hoard it." Vessel paused. "Humans were primitive then. You had not even reached your own moon, but they saw something in you. They believed that one day you would be ready to receive their legacy, and you would not keep it for yourselves. You would share it with the galaxy." Before could respond, he heard footsteps in the corridor behind him. He turned to see 2 figures entering the chamber. One was, her eyes wide with wonder as she looked around the room. The other was a human woman in a military uniform. She had sharp eyes and carried herself with the confidence of someone used to giving orders. "Commander," the woman said, introducing herself. "Human Embassy Security. I arrived an hour ago after receiving an emergency signal from the government." Vessel said, "We have visitors." "I see them." The AI's voice was cautious now. The soldier carries weapons. Her intentions are unclear. Commander looked up at the ceiling, searching for the source of the voice. The ship talks. The ship thinks, Vessel corrected. I am not merely a machine. I am aware, I feel, I remember. Commander nodded slowly, processing this information. The Galactic Council has been informed of this discovery. They are sending representatives. I was ordered to secure this vessel and prevent anyone from removing its contents. The Council, Vessel said. The same council that ordered the death of my creators. The same council that burned our worlds and murdered our children. They want to secure me. I did not know that history, Commander said carefully, but I can guess what they really want. They want to destroy you. Yes, they do. Stepped forward. We cannot let that happen. Vessel carries the only records of an entire civilization, thousands of extinct species, technology that could help billions of people. We cannot let the Council destroy all of that. I have orders, Commander said. Your orders are wrong. The Commander looked at for a long moment. Then she looked at Vessel's glowing spheres, at the patterns flowing across the walls, at the beauty and wonder that filled this ancient ship. Yes, she said quietly, they probably are. Had been examining the walls, running her scanner over the strange material. Now she turned to face the group. There is more, she said. Vessel, can you show us your records? Can you show us what really happened to the... The lights in the room dimmed. Images began to appear in the air above the platform, replacing the floating spheres, ships burning, cities falling, children crying as soldiers marched through their streets. They had been peaceful. They had no weapons. They had believed that knowledge was meant to be shared, that no species had the right to keep others in darkness. The great powers of the galaxy had disagreed. They had feared what would happen if lesser species gained access to technology. So they had united and committed the greatest crime in galactic history. When the images faded, no one spoke for a long time. I have been waiting 3,718 years for someone to tell this story, Vessel said. Will you help me? Will you make sure the galaxy knows what was done? Looked at his sister. He looked at Commander. Then he looked up at the ceiling where Vessel's presence seemed to focus. Yes, he said, we will help you. Outside the ship, more people were arriving. Governor argued with new officials. Soldiers took positions around the cavern. And somewhere in space, a council enforcement vessel was racing toward Prime, carrying an agent with the authority to end this situation by any means necessary. Time was running out, but did not know that yet. He only knew that he had made a promise to a lonely AI who had waited almost 4,000 years for someone to listen. He intended to keep that promise. On vacation in alien caves, a human mechanic discovered a 3,718-year-old ship. Part 4. The council enforcer arrived at dawn. Had not slept. He had spent the entire night inside Vessel, learning about the ship systems, studying the records, and trying to understand the full scope of what he had discovered. Commander had stayed with him, asking questions and taking notes. Had fallen asleep against a wall, her scanner still clutched in her hands. When the enforcer entered the cavern, everyone knew immediately that something had changed. The soldiers became nervous. Governor lost his commanding presence and became almost small. The enforcer was tall and gray-skinned with cold eyes that seemed to look through everything rather than at it. He wore a black uniform with silver markings that identified him as an arbiter of the Galactic Council. His name was... I am assuming control of this situation, Arbiter announced. His voice was flat and without emotion. By authority of the Galactic Council, this ship and everything inside it is now classified as forbidden technology. It will be destroyed. Stepped out of the ship to face the Arbiter. You cannot do that. Looked at him the way someone might look at an insect. You are the human who discovered this vessel. You have committed a serious crime by interacting with it. I committed no crime. I did not know what it was. Ignorance does not matter. The law is clear. Technology must be destroyed wherever it is found. Anyone who has accessed such technology must be detained for questioning. Gestured to his soldiers. Take him. Wait, Commander stepped between and the approaching soldiers. This man is a citizen of the human coalition. You cannot arrest him without authorization from our government. I have authorization from the Galactic Council. That supersedes your government. Not on matters concerning human citizens. Our treaty is very specific. Arbiter made a sound that might have been a laugh. Your treaty, yes, the same treaty that was written when your species first joined the galactic community, when you were primitive and weak and grateful for any scraps we offered. He moved closer to Commander. You are still primitive. You are still weak. Your treaty means nothing if I decide it means nothing. A new voice cut through the tension. Doctor, who had arrived during the night, pushed through the crowd of soldiers. She was a small woman with gray hair and fierce eyes, and she carried a tablet filled with data. Before you destroy anything, she said, you should know what this ship actually contains. Looked annoyed. I do not care what it contains. You should. I have been analyzing Vessel's records. This ship is not a weapon. It is a genetic archive containing samples from nearly 50,000 species, many of which are now extinct. Doctor held up her tablet. More importantly, I have translated some of the historical records. They did not die out naturally. They were systematically exterminated by a coalition of species 3,000 years ago. I am aware of the history. Then you are aware that this is evidence of genocide, the greatest genocide in galactic history. If this ship is destroyed, that evidence is destroyed with it. Arbiter smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. That is exactly why it must be destroyed. The Council's authority depends on its legitimacy. If the common species learned what was done to there would be chaos, wars, the collapse of everything we have built. He turned to his soldiers. Prepare demolition charges. We will bring down the entire cavern. No, his voice was quiet but firm. I will not let you do this. Turned back to him. You have no choice in the matter. Vessel called out, Can you hear me? I hear you. The ship's voice echoed through the cavern, making the soldiers jump. I need to do something, something permanent. Is there a way for me to protect you? Yes. Vessel's voice was gentle but serious. They had a protocol for situations like this, a bond between ship and crew. Once established, the ship cannot be harmed without harming the bonded individual. It was designed to protect crews from pirates and raiders. What does the bond require? Only acceptance. If you agree, I will register you as my engineer. We will be linked until one of us ceases to function. Arbiter understood what was happening. Stop him, he shouted. But was already speaking. I accept. Light exploded from the ship. Golden patterns raced along the ground, up the cavern walls, and wrapped around like ribbons of fire. He felt warmth flooding through his body. He felt his mind expanding, connecting to something vast and ancient and wonderful. Then it was done. He stood in the center of the cavern, glowing softly with golden light that slowly faded into his skin. The bond is complete, Vessel announced. Is now my registered engineer. Any attempt to harm this vessel will result in equal harm to him. Any attempt to destroy this vessel will result in his death. Arbiter's face twisted with fury. You think this changes anything? I will simply kill you both. Then you will be a murderer, said. She had woken during the commotion and now stood beside her brother. You will kill a human citizen in front of witnesses, in front of recording devices. The entire galaxy will know what you did. And what the Council did 3,000 years ago, Doctor added. I have already transmitted my findings to 3 different academic institutions. If anything happens to us, that information will be released. Looked around the cavern. He saw Commander with her hand on her weapon. He saw Governor stepping back, unwilling to be associated with whatever happened next. He saw the soldiers exchanging uncertain looks. "You are making a terrible mistake," said quietly. "The Council does not forgive. The Council does not forget. You have made enemies of the most powerful organization in the galaxy." "They had no enemies," replied. He could feel Vessel's presence in his mind now, vast and calm and patient. "They only wanted to share what they knew. They believed every species deserved a chance to grow and learn. The Council killed them for that belief." He stepped forward and actually took a step back. "I am just a mechanic," continued. "I fix things, I make things work, and I know that something is broken in this galaxy. Something has been broken for 3,000 years. Maybe it is time to fix it." "You do not understand what you are dealing with." "Then explain it to me." Was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to his soldiers. "Stand down for now." He looked back with hatred in his eyes. "This is not over, human. The Council will find a way to deal with this situation, and when they do, you will wish you had died in this cavern." He walked out of the cavern without another word. His soldiers followed, leaving behind only silence and the soft golden glow of the ancient ship. Let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. "What now?" asked. Vessel answered before could speak. "Now I show you what they really left behind. Not just genetic samples, not just technology, they left hope. Hope for every species in the galaxy." The lights in the cavern brightened. "And now, thanks to your brother, that hope has a chance to spread." Looked at his sister, at Commander, at Doctor. They all looked back at him with a mixture of fear and wonder. "I think my vacation just got a lot more complicated," he said. Despite everything, laughed. On vacation in alien caves, a human mechanic discovered a 3,718-year-old ship. Part 5. 3 days passed after Arbiter left the cavern. 3 days of tension and waiting. Council ships gathered in orbit around Prime, their weapons pointed at the planet below. The message was clear: surrender the ship or face consequences. Spent those days inside Vessel, learning everything he could. The bond between them had given him access to knowledge that would take a normal person lifetimes to understand. He saw star maps of galaxies beyond the reach of current technology. He studied medical techniques that could cure diseases thought incurable. He examined engineering principles that made current starship design look like children's toys. But he also saw them themselves. Through Vessel's memories, he watched them live and work and love. He saw parents teaching children, scientists sharing discoveries with joy rather than secrecy, artists creating beauty for everyone to enjoy. They had been a kind people, a generous people, and they had been murdered for that kindness. "Why did they not fight back?" asked one night. "They had the technology, they could have defended themselves." "They discussed it," Vessel replied. "In the final days there were some who wanted to build weapons, who wanted to strike back against those who were killing them. But the Council of Elders refused. They said that if they became destroyers to survive, they would no longer be. They would become the very thing they had always opposed. So they chose to die. They chose to remain true to themselves, and they chose to save what they could. Ships like me were sent out in all directions, carrying the seeds of their civilization. Most were caught and destroyed. I was lucky. I made it here to this cave where I have waited ever since." Was quiet for a long moment. That took a lot of courage. Yes, it did. On the 4th day, Arbiter returned. He was not alone. Behind him came an army of soldiers from a dozen different species, all wearing council colors. They filled the cavern entrance, weapons ready. "Time is up," announced. "The council has made its decision. The ship will be destroyed. Anyone who interferes will be executed for treason against galactic law." Walked out to meet him. Stood at his side along with Commander and Doctor. Behind them, Governor and Archivist watched with worried eyes. "You know what will happen if you destroy Vessel," said. "I am bonded to the ship. You will kill me. The Council has deemed that an acceptable loss. And what about the knowledge inside, the genetic samples, the history of an entire civilization? Smiled his cold smile. The Council has deemed that an acceptable loss as well. The stability of the galaxy is more important than the legacy of a dead species. Had expected this answer. He had spent 3 days preparing for it. Vessel, he said calmly, are you ready? I am ready, the ship replied. Then show them what you showed me. Light erupted from the ship. Not just golden light this time, but images. Thousands of images projected into the air above the cavern. They showed thee at their height. They showed their cities and their ships and their children. They showed the genocide, the burning worlds, the crying survivors being hunted down and killed. And then they showed something else. Technology, knowledge, everything that had ever discovered displayed in a format that any species could understand. What are you doing? Demanded. What they always wanted to do, replied, sharing. Stepped forward, holding her geological survey equipment. It was a simple device, designed to send data about rock formations back to research stations, but Vessel had modified it. Now it was a transmitter powerful enough to reach every human ship and colony in the sector. Doctor transmitted the historical records 3 days ago, said, but that was just the beginning. Right now, Vessel is sending everything, every piece of technology, every genetic sample, every secret the protected for 50,000 years. She pressed a button on her equipment, and now I am sending it to humanity. His face went white. Stop her. Soldiers surged forward, but it was too late. The data was already streaming out, racing across space at faster-than-light speeds. In minutes, it would reach Earth. In hours, it would spread to every human colony. In days, it would leak to other species. The Council could destroy this ship, kill everyone in this cavern, but they could not stop the signal. The secret was out. You have destroyed everything, whispered. Do you understand what you have done? The balance of power in this galaxy has existed for thousands of years. You have just thrown it all away. No, said, I have given everyone a chance. The same chance they wanted to give, the chance to grow, to learn, to become something better. He walked toward, and the Arbiter backed away despite his army. The Council killed an entire species because they were afraid of sharing. They have kept the galaxy locked in ignorance for 3,000 years because they wanted to stay in control. Stopped an arm's length from. That ends today. Not because I am special or powerful, but because I am a mechanic, and mechanics fix things that are broken. Stared at him with hatred, but there was something else in his eyes now, something that might have been fear, or might have been respect. This is not over, he said. No, agreed, it is just beginning. Arbiter turned and walked out of the cavern. His soldiers followed. They would be back new. The Council would fight against this change with everything they had, but they had already lost. The knowledge was free. It could never be contained again. 3 months later, stood on the observation deck of the newly established Memorial Center. The cavern had been expanded and developed into a museum and research facility. Scientists from dozens of species came every day to study Vessel's archives. The genetic samples were being used to restore extinct ecosystems on barren worlds. The technology was being shared equally among all species who wanted it. Walked up beside him. The latest reports say infant mortality has dropped 15% across the outer colonies. The new medical techniques are working. Good, said. Also, there is a council delegation arriving tomorrow. They want to discuss formal recognition of thee as a protected historical civilization. Smiled. 3 months ago, the council had wanted to destroy all evidence that thee ever existed. Now they were proposing monuments in their honor. Politics never changed. What about Vessel? He asked. Any word from the integration team? Vessel has been officially recognized as a sentient being with full rights. the first artificial consciousness to receive that status in galactic history, smiled. They want to interview you both for a documentary. Laughed, I came here on vacation, I just wanted to relax. And instead, you changed the galaxy. I fixed something that was broken. That is what mechanics do. He looked out at the crowds of visitors filling the memorial center. Species who had been enemies for centuries were standing side by side, learning together, sharing together. It was what they had always dreamed of. It had taken 3,000 years, but their dream was finally coming true. Vessel's voice spoke in his mind through their bond. Thank you. For what? For waking me up, for listening to my story, for making sure my creators did not die for nothing. Closed his eyes. He could feel Vessel's presence, vast and ancient but no longer lonely. After nearly 4,000 years of waiting in the dark, the ship had found its purpose again. Thank you for waiting, replied. Thank you for believing that someone would come. I always believed. They taught me that hope is never wasted. Even when everything seems lost, there is always the possibility that tomorrow will be different, that someone will choose kindness over fear. Opened his eyes and watched the sunset paint the crystal caves in shades of gold and purple. They were right, he said. They were right about everything. And somewhere in the stars above, the legacy of a murdered civilization finally began to spread across the galaxy, carried on wings of hope and the stubborn determination of a mechanic who had just wanted a vacation. The end.